And you're good.
All right, this is about we shoot to do about an hour here in the Callahan podcast. So by the time we're done this morning, I'm going to guess 4 or 5 more iconic restaurants, bars in Massachusetts will be out of business. That's the goal of Charlie Baker. He wants to put at least a dozen restaurants out of business every day, and 4 or 5 more New England Patriots will test positive for the coronavirus. It's the hits just keep coming. The news just keeps breaking. We will get into all that today on the Callahan podcast with Tom Shattuck. We'll preview tonight's vice presidential debate. We will tell you about the latest closings. It's depressing, it's sad, and it's sickening that our elected officials don't seem to care, that they are decimating the private sector, decimating the hospitality industry. And we'll give you the latest rule, the latest draconian rule in a big city in Los Angeles, but it'll spread. It'll be here in no time. It'll be all over the place, New York. It'll be everywhere. These governors, these mayors, as we tell you almost every day, are out of control. We'll get into all that today on the Callahan podcast, brought to you as always by our friends at DCU. Love your car, but hate your car payment? No problem. Refinance your car today with DCU, and they can help lower your monthly payment, lower your interest rate, or both. Applying is easy, and the loan experts will help you find the loan term and the payment that fits into your budget. Get out of that high-rate loan and get the interest rate and the payment you deserve from DCU. Learn more and apply today at dcu.org/refinance. Insured by NCUA. Membership required. All right, Tom Shattuck is here. Dave Cullinay is here. I don't even know where to begin, guys. Like I said yesterday to Reamer, I usually have a page of notes, things I want to get to. I got like 6 pages today. It is such a wild time. We have a big debate tonight. I don't know if it matters, but I like my guys. I like my guys' chances. I really do. And we got all kinds of, I feel like it's a snow day. The latest cancellations, it's not a snow day. It's in Massachusetts, it's Charlie Baker Day. In New York, it's an Andrew Cuomo Day. Every day, these monsters wake up and say, what restaurant, what bar, what iconic, what movie theater can I destroy today? If you're Andrew Cuomo, you wake up and say, are those Jews acting up again? Let's send in the troop. Let's send in the brown shirts. If you haven't seen it yet, it's amazing. The Jewish community in Brooklyn revolted. There was a Jewish insurrection. It's kind of like the Warsaw Ghetto in New York. And God bless them. God bless these defiant Jewish folks, because they said, we're not taking it anymore because Cuomo, an anti-Semite and a thug, has singled them out. So they have said, we're going to do what BLM does. We're going to set fires. We're going to fight the cops. And they did. If you haven't seen the video yet, it's wonderful. There's a Jewish riot going on, or there was in New York. We don't have any riots in Massachusetts. We just have an out of control governor who is just feeling cocky, feeling like he can do anything. And you know what he did, Shattuck? You know what he did yesterday? He threw us a bone. He told the people of Massachusetts that he's not going to cancel Halloween, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. They're still on the table. You have 4 little kids, right? You have little kids everywhere.
Right.
Are they all waiting, like nervously waiting for the governor to give them a blessing and say, I will let you walk to the next door neighbor's house with a bag and get a Snickers bar?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're wondering exactly what's going to happen.
Who gave him the right?
Yeah, you hear people talking about like using a candy gun to shoot the candy 40 feet from the house to the kids so that they can be socially distanced. But yeah, a bunch of towns have canceled Halloween. You're not allowed to walk around at night and solicit candy anymore. And a lot of times it's up to the police chiefs, but they don't want to get any grief from Beacon Hill as well. I'd be surprised if my town now, if we have Halloween up here. I'm next to Newburyport. By the way, where there is breaking news up here, Jerry, in Newburyport, which is a nice town, a little north of Boston, the classic old toy store called the Dragon's Nest is closed. A great bar that's after 38 years. A great bar called the Thirsty Will is closed. I just went there yesterday. Just took pictures of a bunch of places that were closed. But a bunch of the restaurants are closed. The school is staggered, unfortunately, which makes it horrific for parents now. And at any time, parents know it's a regional school, that the Pentucket school could close, and that they're going to have to alter their work plans and alter their daycare plans and alter their lives. But thankfully, Jerry, we've got great news. Last night, the school committee voted to get rid of the name sachems.
Oh, geez.
So there we go.
I don't. I should stop harping on the governor and the mayors because they're despicable. I mean, Charlie Baker is beneath contempt. I mean, he is the worst of the worst. Well, not worse than Cuomo, but he's bad. He's a hardcore authoritarian liberal who wants to control your lives. I can't wait to see his ass voted out of office. It bothers me when he calls himself a Republican. He is not. But I'll ask myself this question, Jerry, when do you blame the people? When do you blame the voters? When do you blame the morons who live in these towns and think trick-or-treating puts their children's lives at risk? I mean, that's just stupid. If you believe that, you're not just a sucker. You're not just a sheep. You're stupid. This is the governor, not the governor, the mayor of Springfield, Massachusetts, Dominic Sarno. He canceled Halloween. You know, I'd love to see in the state constitution, in the chart, and I'd love to see the statute that allows a mayor to cancel Halloween. And I'm dead serious, Shattuck, when I say this. Are we waiting to see if they cancel Thanksgiving and Christmas? Is that like next on the agenda? Excuse me, Governor. Do you mind if we celebrate Christmas? This is madness. This is absolute madness. We've reached this point where we're waiting for some hack politician who got elected. That's all he did. He got elected. It doesn't make him God. That doesn't make him a virtuous human being. He just got elected in Massachusetts, where we elect the worst retrobates. We elect, Barney Frank and Liz Warren and Ed Markey and just these sleazy people. And then they determine whether we can celebrate Christmas or, in this case, Halloween.
I think Thanksgiving is in the chopping block because the origin.
You're right. You know what, Tom? You're right. They've already canceled it because they've canceled high school football and they've canceled turkey trots, road races. So what's left for like a community celebration of the holidays? So you're right. They've canceled Thanksgiving. Now we wait. We wait nervously. Charlie, Mr. Baker, sir, Mr. Governor, is it okay if we celebrate the birth of baby Jesus? Would that be okay? or will you tell us? Will there be an edict from above that says no Christmas this year? And I'm telling you, I do have to at least share the blame or point the finger at the people out there, these morons, my neighbors, my friends who say, yeah, he just wants to keep us safe. Okay, neighbors, if Tom Shattuck's kids get dressed up like whatever, Batman, or what are you kids going to dress as? What's the popular costume?
Paw Patrol, which has got its own problem.
So Paw Patrol takes a little sack, a little pillowcase, and goes next door, and the next door neighbor drops a Snickers bar in his bag. That doesn't hurt anybody. Tom Shattuck's little children aren't going to get the virus. And even if they do, they're not going to die. They're not even going to know it. It's not a problem. It's not. And you know what? Trump was right. It's not. It's the flu is worse for Tom Shattuck's kids. The flu is worse. If you don't understand that, then you're stupid. You're not well read. You're not well informed. Anyway, back to the mayor of Springfield, Massachusetts. This idiot, Dominic Sarno, quote, "It boggles my mind why any family would want to potentially put their child or children in harm's way for a candy bar. Once we defeat this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, many of our traditions will come back and we will be welcomed." Okay, I reiterate, we elect morons in this state and many states, New York, and mostly liberal states, blue states, mostly in the Northeast. But he thinks if Tom Shattuck's kid goes next door and gets a candy bar, his kid's in harm's way. Question for you, Mayor Sarno. What harm would that do to Tom Shattuck's child? Tom Shattuck's 6. How old's your kids?
10 to 2.
10 to 2. Did you have a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old?
There is one in there, yeah.
Oh, good. How does that put Tom Shattuck's 6-year-old in harm's way, you freaking moron?
Yeah.
These people don't care. They're not asking. It doesn't matter. They're aroused. This guy, Dominic Sarno, has a little pup tent in his pants. He's aroused when he wakes up in the morning. He says, how can I exert my power, my newfound influence on people's lives? Same with the thug governor we have, Charlie Baker. Yesterday, he did a press conference from a restaurant in Salem. I assume it's shuttered. I assume it's bankrupt because he's done that. With this Mayor Driscoll of Salem. Now, Salem, if you're not aware, if you're not local, is a big deal on Halloween. People come from all over to dress up, all these idiots. I mean, not my thing, but that's what they do. She has hired people. She called them something. I don't know what she called them, like downtown patrol or downtown, Stasi, to go around downtown Salem and make sure people aren't make sure everyone has a mask. Not just a Halloween mask, but, a mask to cover their mouth and nose. Make sure the businesses don't let people stand too close together when they're stopping in to get a coffee or something. They're hiring agents, little undercover agents to snoop. Baker, the thug, has a snitch line. As you know, you call 211 if your neighbors are out in their yard and they're having a beer with their, family or having a cookout with their kids, and they're not masked up. You get to call 211 and say, excuse me, I'd like to report someone is breaking the rules. I need you to send in a patrol car to take them away. They're putting us all in danger. We have lost our collective minds. It gets worse every day. And I watched or listened to the press conference of Baker. He doesn't care at all that he's bankrupting thousands of small businesses, that he's putting restaurants out of business. It doesn't faze him at all. He's loving it. He is loving it. He is, as I pointed out, as I tweeted, he fake cried about some fictional fisherman one day. He can act like he's a great actor. He pretends to feel upset and he pretend cries. He's like, a genuine, actor.
When you were talking about Springfield, I was thinking about Salem. What is Salem doing this year? Listen to this quote from the mayor that you were just referencing. If you have not secured lodging or booked tickets in advance for your stay, you may want to consider saving your visit till 2021. So she is saying, stay away from us. Just do not come here.
I can get the numbers right in front of me. The world of media numbers. The numbers in the lockdown states are worse than the states that don't lock down. Restaurants that go out of business. Yesterday, there was a couple of iconic restaurants in Massachusetts. One Irish pub called the Kinsale, which I cannot believe is closing their doors, because I jog by all the time. And before the lockdowns, it was always packed. And I mean, it was hopping and it was loud and it was fun looking. And it's a real Irish pub. That's where people go for the real Irish pub experience. It's right by City Hall. They're closing their doors. Not because of the pandemic, because of Charlie Baker and Marty Walsh, these two tyrants who put them out of business. And did Baker say, I want to express my condolences to the owners, to the people who work there, the bartenders? No.
And you think that the Kinsale is directly geographically in between City Hall and the State House, right, which means that Baker's staff and half of those Pauls in City Hall and the City Council, they go there and they expense their meals there. We've been paying for Kinsale meals for these people forever, but no, they don't even get a pass. I mean, all of those. I assume we've already lost a bunch of restaurants in the West End, near the Garden, and a whole bunch near the South End. Central Square has been decimated, which is awful in Cambridge. And even Park Square in Boston. This is the legal seafood you've lost. But you're right. If you're a bureaucrat and you're an over-controlling bureaucrat, you look at Halloween, even without the coronavirus, and it's troublesome to you. You've got people transacting with each other without the government getting a piece of it, which is already not a good thing. They're exchanging unhealthy candy, which is not a good thing, which also victimizes marginalized communities the more. This thing was ready for government to need a reason to get in there and change it forever.
You hear why Baker, the governor's reasoning for not canceling Halloween, not that he doesn't have the jurisdiction, not that that's not his job. He didn't say that. God knows he thinks he controls everything, just like Cuomo. Cuomo thinks he can stop Jewish people from exercising their First Amendment right to religion, to express themselves, the religion, whatever. He thinks he's not canceling Halloween or trick-or-treating because if he does, he's afraid that kids will gather together indoors and have Halloween parties, and God knows we can't have that. So the only reason he's allowing kids to trick-or-treat is because he thinks it will stop them from having parties and and then if your 6-year-old has a party with the other 6-year-old, Shattuck, they're all going to die. Am I asking too much when I ask people, neighbors, friends, to just friggin' read up a little bit and understand that 6-year-olds don't get the virus. 6-year-olds don't die from the virus. They don't transmit the virus. It's just, I don't know how much longer I could do this. I'm losing my freaking mind watching these morons, these mask fanatics, putting masks on their 2- and 3-year-olds in strollers. I see it every day. Every day is something new. Yesterday, I'm walking through the city, and I'm obviously don't have a mask. I'm by myself. I'm not with anyone. There's no one. As usual, I'm all alone, 6 feet away from anybody. And I'm going across this bridge right near downtown, right near the garden. And an older guy, he's got a mask on and a hat, a baseball cap like this. And I'm 50 feet away from him, 40, 30 feet. And he looks at me, and we're at this point, we're 25 feet away. He takes his hat off and he covers his entire face like this and walks by me like this. Covers his face with his baseball cap. I just laugh out loud. I never got within 10, 12 feet of him, and I just started laughing at the fool. He literally had a mask on under the hat, but covered his face like this because he saw me coming. People have lost it. I realize I'm losing it a little bit too, but that's because I'm so disappointed in my fellow man, my neighbors, my friends, people that live near me, people that don't live near me. Here's the latest from LA. Have you heard this one, Shattuck? The mayor out there, LA, who's another fanatic, who's another monster, who's another tyrant, Eric Garcetti. If you haven't seen him, he's the one who got down on his knees in front of a Black Lives Matter
one of the ones
activist, agitator. They told him to get on his knees, and he did. That's the kind of pathetic human being Eric Garcetti. They came out with the latest. I don't know if you can find this, Dave, to put it up on screen, but the latest tweet from the mayor is demanding that you wear a mask in restaurants and put it on between bites. I tweeted about this, and so did lots of people. It kind of went viral. They literally have a diagram.
Yes.
I retweeted it yesterday, Cullinane, and they have a diagram on how you lift your fork to your mouth with one hand and pull your mask down with the other and eat. And then once the food's in your mouth, you put the mask back on, and then you put the fork down with the mask on, and then you pull it up. And this is from a city agency, the mayor's office, telling you that you must put your mask on between bites.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom it put out the same thing as well, and that's going to spread through the country. I think every liberal city in Massachusetts will have that as well. They love graphic design. They love that is such a Marty Walsh thing, actually. But no, they love that kind of thing. And what it's done is obviously driven businesses and restaurants out of LA. Just look at Rogan left LA, Ben Shapiro and his company, they're leaving LA. It's untenable now. And this is just snuffing out businesses now, just harassing more and more, dialing back in Boston. Marty Walsh is really upset at you. Now we have to go to status red again. I'm sorry about that. You've really disappointed us. And bang, there you go. You suck away more income. And then to say with a straight face, we're going to allow you to have outside seating in December on City Hall Plaza. You can't say that with a straight face unless you know that you're just bleeping around. And they know they are. And you're right, Jerry. Do you think that Thanksgiving is safe? Hell no, because Thanksgiving's got two two public health crisis. One, the coronavirus. Two, Thanksgiving is based on racism.
Oh, good point. Good
So
point.
those
Yeah,
are two.
we should. That's true. There'll be some Antifa and BLM. They'll be rioting that week, saying that we must stop Thanksgiving.
Right. The first
But
Thanksgiving,
essentially,
Gary,
in my mind, they've already killed it because I used to do two things on Thanksgiving. I'd run in a road race, and then those are canceled. Can't have people running outside,
No.
because we're much better off staying inside, breathing on each other, and getting fat, because that, God knows that won't be a problem. But we got to make sure all gyms are closed and all road races are canceled. Not that obesity is an underlying condition or anything.
No.
And high school football, which they've already canceled for the most part, even though high school kids don't get the virus, and high school football is a healthy way to get kids in shape. And by the way, they're playing anyway. They're out there playing with each other, playing games, playing pickup football, pickup basketball. They're in the locker room. They're in the weight room, putting uniforms on them and putting them against another town. That would put their lives at risk, according to the morons that we've elected. And this idiot mayor of Springfield, or this idiot mayor of Salem, or this idiot. Did you find the LA?
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were the most rattled in the world about the Eddie Van Halen news. You've tweeted about it 25 times. I did find it though. Hang on.
Who did?
You did. You retweeted everything about
he's an American hero, Eddie Van Halen.
What are you talking about? I didn't tweet once about Eddie Van Halen.
Retweeted everything. Hold on, I found it. I ended up finding it after 10 minutes.
What are you talking about? I retweeted, I think, Eddie Van Halen's son or his ex-wife, Valerie Bertinelli. That was it. I didn't say a word about him. I will if Shattuck wants to talk about it. But this is, if you're watching on Facebook Live, and by the way, we're expecting a huge audience because it's the Shattuck factor. Last week, Shattuck got 50 million views.
Well,
but
I better share this.
That's the tweet from the mayor of LA showing you. There's the guy. Here it is. On. You got your mask on, and the second one, you're lifting the food to your face, off, and then the food's in your mouth, on. This is the office. I'm sorry, this is the governor. This is not Garcetti, although Garcetti's worse.
It's the same thing.
Gavin Newsom, they're the same. They're both tyrants. They're both destroying a once great state. They're both just out of control, and they're going to get worse. They don't want any cure. They don't want any vaccine. They love this power. Are people going to do that? See, I've given up hope from my fellow man that people like the old guy I walked by yesterday that think that they're going to get the virus walking 20 feet away from another human being on a sunny, breezy fall day. Is that person going to cover their mouth between bites?
I think nobody's going to do that. It doesn't make any sense. It's too hard to do. But what? These are trends as well, so people have done people want to be part of performative demonstrations. This year you've all taken a knee and you've done the thing, and now wearing the masks is a huge thing, even though these surgical masks, according to the CDC, aren't very effective in stopping coronavirus. They're effective in preventing somebody from spitting in your mouth, essentially. But the CDC says, you should be wearing N95 masks or better to prevent the coronavirus and the spread of the coronavirus. But the CDC also says to the public, you shouldn't buy the N95 masks because we need them in case there's a huge outbreak. So this is really performative with the masks and the pulling down the mask and biting, and it's not going to end. There are more of these guilty middle-class liberals who want more reasons to have to show how put out they are by the evil Donald Trump. And they'll do whatever you want them to.
I know you maybe you're right. Maybe after November 4th, November 3rd, it all changes. Maybe people are just doing this. I know that's why some governors and obviously some media people. That's why they're acting as if we're all going to die because chaos helps their guy Joe Biden. So maybe in 4 weeks it all ends. But it is disappointing to see what lemmings people can be, that they will rat out their neighbors, that they will say something about their neighbors' kids if their neighbors' kids are gathered with other kids. They can't think those kids' lives are in danger. They can't, but they're enjoying this power and they are motivated by fear. and they don't seem to care. I mean, I go nuts every time a nice restaurant or bar at an iconic place like Kinsale or, Cheers or Fours in our city goes every time the governor or the mayor puts another small business out of business, puts another gym out of business. And I just don't feel like there's enough people that see it the way I see it. Did you see the news about Regal Cinemas? Regal Cinemas. 550 theaters nationwide closing their doors. A very popular, very profitable movie theater chain gone. Just gone like that. It's not even a headline. Are you telling me that you couldn't have a movie? I mean, I never go to the movies like Friday night when the movie premieres. I never go to a crowded. I wait a few days or go to a matinee. And it's never full. There's plenty of room. I mean, there's plenty of distance between people. Say it's a theater that holds 200 seats and there's 100 people or 75 people in it. Why can't you do that? It seems easy to distance in a movie theater, but they just out of fear. Well, first of all, the government won't let these theaters open up and distance. Secondly, people are afraid to go to the movies. Wear your friggin' mask. Between bites of popcorn, put it on. We're going to lose all our movie theaters. And people are like, yeah.
I don't know how many movie theaters AMC has. AMC lost $3 billion already in 2020. AMC.
Well, they're going to be next, I assume. Yeah. I mean, it's not like Regal is special. That's the way the business is going. You know what the governor should be doing instead of standing up there and giving out the snitch line and telling people that they can't, have trick or treat. They should be saying, go to the movies. They should be saying, go to the movies. Don't sit next to a stranger. Go to the movies. Do what they do. Did you see the Patriots of Kansas City? They had 16,000 people socially distanced with masks, and they all had a good time. Do that if you want. If you don't, don't. But he should be encouraging people to go to Kinsale or go to Regal theaters. The idea that when this is all over, these places are going to come back. They're not. They're
no. And I know that we've said this again and again and again. But remember, 15 days to stop the spread back in March was about fatalities. We didn't want a surge because we didn't want fatalities. Now this game about cases, more cases. There's more cases. There's more cases. Since when? It's a pandemic. Of course, there's going to be cases. We don't even know what truly constitutes a case at this moment. And the variance in how severe these things are. Some cases are no symptoms, like Kayleigh McEnany right now is no symptoms, according to the doctors. Now, Trump has no symptoms either. We don't know, that cases necessarily translate to catastrophic fatalities. So far, it proves they don't. Right. They didn't. We were unprepared in big hubs with Democratic leadership. But now, no. And there was no reason. Just look at DeSantis in Florida. There was a balance that you could strike to try to preserve some of your economy. It would have been a hard thing to do, but you needed to have somebody with businesses in mind who knew that the lifeblood of these cities and these states are businesses. But
it's part of the big lie, and I realize that lots of people don't actually believe it, but they are advancing this lie because it helps their guy, Joe Biden, again. But cases don't matter. It's still, it's about deaths and deaths per million. And if a iconic Irish pub like Kinsale in Boston were in Atlanta or in Phoenix or in Orlando, it would be fine. It would survive. These people who own it, who invested all their money in it, the people who work there would be fine. So you tell me, why does it have to go out of business because it's in Massachusetts and not in Phoenix? Why? Simply the government overreach, the overreaction of government. Now that should matter to everybody. It shouldn't just matter to me or Tom Shattuck or Howie Carr. It should matter to everyone that the governors and the mayors in our state, these bums that we elected, are putting thousands and thousands of small businesses and all their employees, they're putting them out in the street just because they are so drunk with power. They are so aroused by their power that they wake up every day looking for a new way to flex their muscles. Here's what matters, right? You mentioned cases. Obviously, cases don't matter. I tweeted this out yesterday we've talked about it a lot, and there are now over 70,000 college students who've tested positive since going back to school in September, going back to campus. 70,000 positive tests. Did you see this chart, Tom? Do you know how many are in the hospital? How many died? Do you know how many died?
I don't think, did any die? 70,000?
Zero. Do you know how many are in the hospital?
250.
Two. 70,000 positive tests in college students. That is what Trump was talking about. When Trump said, and he took a lot of heat, but he was 100% right. It needed to be said. He said, don't let it dominate your life. Don't live in fear. So people like this moron mayor in Springfield says if young kids, 10, 12-year-old kids, go trick-or-treat and they're taking their lives in their hands, they're going to die. But 70,000 college kids, age 18 to 22, tested positive. None died. 2 were in the hospital. I'm going to guess the 2 in the hospital had underlying conditions, asthma, obesity. Maybe they don't even need to be in the hospital. Maybe they're hypochondriacs, but none died. That should wake people up. They should say, you know what? He's right. We're living in fear, canceling our lives, putting businesses out of business for a disease that we know so much more about now. We know it targets the elderly. We know it kills people with other comorbidities. We know the average age of the deceased in Massachusetts is 82. The average normal death lifespan is 78. So the people dying, at least in Massachusetts, are 4 years older than the average person who passes away.
Right.
So they have like an extra 3 or 4 comorbidities. They're in the last year of their lives. It's sad, but it shouldn't prevent Tom Shattuck's children from walking around the neighborhood and enjoying Halloween. We have just friggin' lost our friggin' minds. Here's the death rate. Death rate is all that matters, right? That's all that matters.
Right.
Cases don't matter, particularly young people who don't even know. Like you said, Kaylee McEnany, Stephon Gilmore, Cam Newton. They don't even know they have it. Death rate, top number 1 state. Wow, I didn't even know that. New Jersey has passed New York. Number 1, New Jersey. Number 2, New York. Number 3, Massachusetts. That's almost 1,400 deaths per million. Number 4, Connecticut. Number 5, Louisiana. Number 6, Rhode Island. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 out of 6 in the Northeast. 5 out of 6 have the strictest lockdown rules in the country. 5 out of 6 have hardcore authoritarian liberal governors, mayors, elected officials who are busy canceling high school sports and Halloween and Christmas and everything else. They have the highest death rate in the country. When do we wake up and say these lockdowns, these measures don't work? When does that happen?
I think it probably happens when we see that more people start dying from the flu. So I think that'll split the country even more. But where you'll have half the people say, "Oh my God, we got to keep on cloistering and wearing masks," obviously, seasonally every year. And then half the country will say, "This is BS. We've lived with the flu before."
When? I mean, but don't they know now? I mean, this is available. You want to know the info? I realize if you're watching CNN with that clown show, or you're watching, MSNBC, that you might not be getting the information, but it's available. You should know now that the average, victim of coronavirus is 82. Shouldn't you? Is that hard to find that information?
No, you would think not, Jerry. But it's funny because we talk about the fact in Salem now, like societally, what is this going to do? In Salem now, you're going to have narcs and rats amidst the crowd. Like some dude dressed as Jar Jar Binks is going to be speaking into his lapel, ratting out clusters of kids. But also, we're making businesses, act abrasively towards the public. And there used to be a good partnership between businesses and the public. There's this famous video now showing people holding a funeral, socially distanced apart.
Oh, I was going to get to that. It's amazing. I don't know if you can find it, Cullinane. I tweeted it. Lots of people tweeted about it. It's from the UK. It's a funeral. The camera's up above. It is the most disturbing damn thing. I mean, obviously, nobody dies except the guy in the casket. It's not like watching, a BLM riot where they're beating up or they're trashing some poor Hispanic kid's birthday party. That was a good video that came out yesterday, but I tweeted about it. It's so inhumane. It's infuriating. It's a funeral in the UK, and in the middle, in front, next to the casket, is the widow. And all the family members are spread out like 8 feet apart in chairs. And there's only like 10 because that's all you're allowed to have. Unless you're John Lewis or Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who are deities. They get to have their old-fashioned funerals. They get to have unlimited crowds because they're special. If you're special, you can have a funeral. If not, if you're just a regular if you're a World War II vet or somebody that just lived their life the right way, screw you. 10 people's the limit. Anyway, the widow is in the middle, and one of her sons is on the side. The widow's obviously upset. She's crying. He comes over to console her, slides his chair over to his mother, and this asshole funeral director runs up the aisle and scolds him. And you can hear it. Get back. And the idiot son. I'm sure I shouldn't say that. The poor guy's grieving. He does what he's told. And I'm not kidding when I say I would snap right there. I would take a swing at the guy. He's telling this son that he cannot console his mother. They're family members, I'm pretty sure, son, mother. They've been together a lot. They aren't endangering either. Neither of them's endangering anybody. But this monster, this little Charlie Baker of a funeral director yells at them.
It's my privilege to have been asked to conduct our service today to celebrate the life of Alan Wright. I therefore offer you all a very warm welcome as we unite in love and friendship to...
You have to put the chair back, I'm afraid. You can't move the chair to a side.
If that doesn't disturb you, if you think that is called for, if that's appropriate, then I don't know what to tell you. You don't belong in this country. You should be.
Well, but that's the toxicity of the like this authoritarian bender that these people are on, is that you're making that guy just may want to save his business, and he's been told by the state, "Hey, we're monitoring you. We've gotten reports, and we will shut you down." That guy could be teetering on the brink as well. I mean, you got to assume that a lot of these folks who have died from coronavirus, and a lot of these folks who are not just dying, are having financial troubles. Then this guy might be, week to week.
Oh, don't make excuses.
I'm just saying that it's toxic. This is what you do. You're poisoning your society here, Jerry. You know that if there are any Halloweens, we're going to have a whole bunch of pictures of little kids dressed as Harry Potter characters. And if they're not socially distanced, there's going to be grainy pictures of them all over Facebook. These are what people do now for their leisure time, is to document and look and say, wait, there's 7 of them there. If this is your son, please think of the rest of us. You're killing people here. And people consider that a real thing. He's got these obnoxious, coffee clash community shows about masking up, and the little coffee cups now have masks on them. Like, this is a religion, these people. This is a theological experience for these people, and it's freaking crazy.
It's just sad, and it's just I'm sorry. I'm depressed. It's depressing me to see how my fellow man is behaving. Plus, really bad news this morning. I think we could move on. We got a lot to get to.
Before you get there, though, so everybody keeps saying, though, the only thing that could change, that could get people out of their homes, is a vaccine. How quick, if a vaccine becomes available, how quick do things turn around? Because I don't even think that helps.
I tell you what doesn't turn around: the 5,000 restaurants in Massachusetts, the 12,000 restaurants in New York City. They don't turn around. They don't come back. We'll never. The Regal cinemas. You better hope. I don't know, Amazon distribution centers takes over, because there's going to be a lot of vacant buildings.
I just pulled up an article on the cinemas. It is horrifying what they're going through. It is.
Oh yeah.
Cinemark last quarter had $70 million worth in rent with no revenue. Like, it's just horrible, because none of them own the buildings, and that's the issue with the restaurants too, right? They don't own. They're all renting.
Yeah, and then we have morons. Our elected officials are like AOC or Ayanna Pressley or Joe Biden, who will side and say, let's cancel rent. And then what do landlords do? Landlords are the biggest victims in this whole thing, because There's no sympathy for them. There's sympathy for renters. And they say, oh, don't pay your rent. This is a tyrannical dictatorship. Don't pay your rent. Then what happens to a landlord? What happens to them?
Right.
They go bankrupt. Like,
Right.
You know
and then what happens to the banks?
I'm going to start a riot. You guys want to riot with me in favor? We're going to do it in support of landlords. In landlords, screw renters. I'm going to support landlords.
I put all my money into the Minnesota bail fund. I have nothing left to help out landlords.
Which brings us to tonight's debate. I want to get to this because, first of all, I want to get to the really sad news this morning. Two very sad. I shouldn't say sad. Bad news. Disturbing news. Stephon Gilmore, New England Patriot, tested positive for the coronavirus. He's the best player on the team. He might not be the most important player, as we saw Monday night. That would be Cam Newton, but Cam Newton and Stephon Gilmore,
two of our best players.
two best players are out. Fortunately, you're playing the lowly Broncos, but still, maybe
that game is not happening. You and I both know that game's not happening.
Well, maybe that's best because those two are really important. But also, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle this. Can you hold me, Shattuck? Because first thing this morning when I woke up, I click online and I see the Boston Globe has endorsed Joe Biden. I feel like it's over now. I feel like there's no hope.
I can't believe that. I mean, that must have been neck and neck for a while. I'm sure they're up.
You know what? I picture millions of undecided voters today picking up the Boston Globe and saying, well, now that you mention it, I think I'm on Team Joe. I think I'm with Biden. First of all, who even reads? I mean, have you seen? I haven't seen a Boston Globe anywhere, and I've been in the city and walking around and running, and nobody reads it. Secondly, it hasn't had influence in like 30 years. They could endorse. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. But they got a big cartoon and all the reasons. One of the reasons we have to vote for Joe Biden to stop the climate catastrophe. If we don't vote for Joe Biden, the seas will rise and the forests will burn. It will all die. When do we get past that nonsense, that silliness? Obama told us if we voted for him, the seas would recede. The rising of the oceans would stop. Now, that didn't happen. Even though he had 8 years to stop the rising seas, he didn't do it. So now we think his feeble vice president will take office and he will stop the seas from rising. I know that most, hardcore, Globe readers, Biden supporters, they're not the brightest people. But does anyone actually believe that if we elect Joe Biden, the seas will recede and the forests will no longer burn?
Yeah, no, I mean, there was more burning of the forest, of course, 120 years ago in California than there is now. And so this idea that it's industrial fallout that is the keys for this. But the Globe, remember, in 2019 said Elizabeth Warren cannot run the editorial board, that she cannot run, that she doesn't have the qualifications, and she's got ethical issues now, and this is not her year. And then in 2020, they endorsed her for president. I think it was didn't the Times endorse 2 women for president? Because they were.
It was Klobuchar and Kamala, I believe.
Yeah,
couldn't decide.
Can you imagine the mask power in that room in the editorial board with the Globe? The funny masks, the RGB masks, the little signature masks, the Michelle Obama masks. I can't imagine.
They all wear that lacy collar thing that Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They're all walking around with that. So, because they're struggling. They're struggling. But you know what? I didn't really think it through. So I guess I'm on Team Joe now because, I don't want to die, Tom Shattuck. And I think if we reelect Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure the sun will kill us all, and the world will probably end. So that's what AOC, who's one of the close advisors, confidants of Biden, she said the world's going to end if we don't stop climate change and adopt the new Green New Deal. So I'm all in. Right. I feel like tonight we're going to, and Turtle Boy's been on this for a while, but I think Mike Pence is an underrated debater. And I think he will learn from Trump's uneven performance against Biden last week, and he will hammer away at a few points that need to be made, like the bail fund, the Minneapolis bail fund, Kamala Harris. And by the way, lots more rioting last night in Portland and New York. And this is a new one. If you missed it, the Jews are rioting in New York. But and they're not burning buildings. They just want to worship their God, and Cuomo, that tyrant, won't let them. So God bless them. I'm finally supporting one of these insurrections. I'm with the Jewish community in Brooklyn, but the Antifa scum is burning buildings again. They're attacking cops again in Portland last night, and Kamala Harris is on their side. Those are Biden voters. Those are Kamala Harris supporters. So if Mike Pence is smart, and he is, I think he ties that right around her and drops that right in her lap tonight. You bailed out this vermin. You bailed out these people, these anti-American, these anarchists, these scum. You support them. Let's hear you denounce them. Now I realize the moderator is another Biden stooge. Every debate, Shattuck, every friggin' debate is moderated by a Biden supporter. Why is that? Why did Trump allow that?
I know it's idiocy, and I mean, I guess Chris Wallace wasn't ostensibly. I guess he was the that made the deal. He was the compromise, I guess.
He was the worst. He was the worst. I mean, he's worst. He's the wolf. He's the wolf in Wolf's Claw. I mean, I hate Chris Wallace more than I hate any newsman, because he is clearly a Biden supporter. Clearly, if you ask about Charlottesville, you expose yourself as a Biden supporter, a Trump hater.
I agree with that. I do think that Pence, he is the leader of the coronavirus task force. So he has to be ready to lay out the scenario if she and Biden had been in charge. And remember what Biden would have done, including keeping the flights coming in from China, including being behind on Trump's own mask initiative. The NBC had a story that I just saw from March saying, this is in March, why Trump has failed the coronavirus test. And the gist of the story is that he was telling the coronavirus task force that there should be masks. And they said, no, we don't think masks are that effective. And he said, but doctors are using masks. Why shouldn't people use masks? And they said, no. We don't want to run on masks. So he should be ready. Pence has to be ready to go right at her. Certainly go after her for the riots and the hypothetical for coronavirus, and the fact that she's got no soul, really. She's got no ideology. Right. She'll say whatever it takes to get by, and he should specifically bring up this.
Because in those debates, you landed haymakers on Joe Biden. I mean, his teeth were like chiclets all over the stage, and now I believe you that you're fully supportive of him. How does that transition happen? How do you go from being such a passionate opponent on such bedrock principles for you, and now you guys seem to be pals?
It was a debate.
Not everybody landed punches like you did, though.
It was a debate.
So
he's got to bring that up and bring up the fact that everything she says tonight is disposable and just there because it's a debate, and she's going to lie and she's going to be untruthful, and he's got to get her on her heels, because if he gets her off balance, she will say whatever it takes to get out of that moment, whatever it takes.
That is a great cut. I'm glad you played it, because a couple things. That is the downside to being a Democrat is you're never held accountable for anything. You could say, we know what she did in the primary debates. She attacked Biden for being A, racist, and B, sexist. She believed Tara Reid. We know that. That was less than a year ago. And she can just laugh it off with that stooge Colbert and just say, it was a debate. Heck, what does that mean? So you're in a debate and you lie? You're in a debate, you don't tell the truth? Or what? If that's a Republican, they're forced to explain their position. Because you're a Democrat and you just can giggle. And by the way, she is the most unlikable. I mean, she's like almost at Hillary level of just unlikability. That laugh, that look. She's just surly, and she's just. She's and if Pence presses her on it, she's just going to giggle. And I realized that this moderator, it'll be 2-on-1 again. I'm ready for it this time. It'll be 2-on-1 again, but. He can hold her. He can hammer away at that in his kind of understated way, which will be refreshing after watching Trump, attack Biden for his class rank in law school. I think Pence will stay on message. He'll talk about the bail fund. He'll talk about her attacks on Biden. He'll do well. And she'll, look obviously to the moderator to help her out. And I'm sure the moderator will. But maybe my hopes are too high, but I think Pence will do very, very well.
I completely agree. He's a totally different cat than Donald Trump, and she is not. She is weak. She's always been inflated. People have always been, they give her the yes, slay queen, compliment all the time. Like, wow, she schooled him. But she has no defense for anything. Tulsi Gabbard blew her up. She didn't make it to New Hampshire.
I know she never was in a primary. Didn't make an Iowa. She was out in 2019. She never made it to 2020. And I say it all the time, but there was a poll, I think it was the last straw, the end of last year, among black voters, black Democrat voters. She finished 4th behind Liz Warren. She was less popular among black Democrats than Liz Warren, obviously way behind Biden, way behind Bernie, and behind Liz Warren. She is a terrible candidate, a terrible choice. And I hope the country sees that tonight. But this is going to be frustrating because the idea that Trump was riding high until the virus, I understand that. The virus was devastating. It cost, trillions in our economy and jobs and businesses. But when you press a Democrat and say, what did Trump do wrong? Biden has virtually no answer to that. Biden obviously would have been much, much worse. There would have been a much higher death toll. He would not have stopped flights from China. He would not have stopped flights from Europe. He would have invited people to go downtown to parades, just like all the Democrats did, just like de Blasio and Newsom and Garcetti. None of them took it seriously. So why do we think anything would have been better under a President Biden or a President Hillary? It wouldn't have been.
No, and if you said if you press Democrats, what they'll say is that he told Bob Woodward that that the virus was much more serious than he told the American people, which is not true. He talked so much about this virus. He said everything that he said to Woodward to everybody else. The only thing he didn't say was that it was airborne. And at the time he said that, nobody thought it was airborne. There was nobody saying in the CDC that it was airborne. They thought the CDC was telling us then that it was essentially, touching by hands and coughing on each other, but not that the particulates would go into the air. And the definition of airborne and in travel, and so that we were susceptible to a much greater degree. And so no, I mean, he's inarticulate and he bumbles and stumbles and he thinks out loud in front of people.
And he says dumb stuff. And I say it all the time, Tom. If you can remove what he says, like dumb things like ripping Biden for having a really big mask, if you just leave that out and talk about what he does, which they won't do because it doesn't help Democrats, then tell me what he did that was so nefarious. What did he do that got people? I mean, what did he do? Forget what he said and tweeted and just tell me what he did. They got nothing. And if you look back, and I realize this doesn't help Democrats, their guy, Fauci, the icon to the totalitarian left, not only did he say you don't need a mask in March, and so did the Surgeon General, said you don't need a mask, masks don't help. On March 9th, I believe it was March 9th, Fauci said, don't hesitate to go on a cruise. So if you listen to Fauci and went on a cruise like March 9th, 10th, you'd have been trapped at sea for like 3 months. He is a fool. He's been wrong about everything. And another great move Trump made was bringing in Scott Atlas. Scott Atlas, who's against lockdowns. And obviously, that was something that Trump needed because lockdowns are disastrous. Lockdowns don't work. We see it every day. We see it in Massachusetts and New York and New Jersey compared to, Texas and Florida, compared to Sweden. Compare Spain and Italy to Sweden. Lockdowns were a mistake. And Scott Atlas was brought in to point that out. And I hope he does it every day until people finally understand.
Right. But generally, he is losing the public perception on his handling of the coronavirus as the health pandemic, but also with his F up yesterday saying that he was going to table stimulus till after the election. Then he loses on the financial part of the pandemic as well, and that could be devastating, Jerry. That what he did yesterday was it was essentially detonate his campaign, and that he's got to fix that immediately. This is not good news. He's given Kamala Harris all she needs to mention tonight, really,
Right.
is that the president doesn't care. He walked away from the table. Now, the facts are, of course, that Pelosi has been obfuscating for months and couldn't give a damn about people getting their checks. She's got a huge comprehensive pork bill, including social justice stuff and climate crap. But that's tougher to explain to the American people. Trump's the one who tweeted that he's walking away from the table. That's a freaking bad look, and he's got to get something. This is the 28-3 moment for this campaign.
I think he's counting on people to do a little bit of homework and look into it, read into it a little. If you're just sitting there and you're just a brain dead Democrat and watching CNN, you go, well, Trump doesn't care. He doesn't care about people. If you say, what did Pelosi demand? If you ask that one question and you find out she wanted, money to go to illegal aliens and money to bail out, New York City and Seattle, then the average person in, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania is going to go, screw them. Of course, I'm glad that Trump is holding the line. But again, he has to count on the getting through, getting past the media, getting past the, the disinformation campaign. And that's hard to do. I mean, it hasn't worked so far. It's getting a little discouraging. I will agree
something
with you.
Could happen, Jerry. Something could happen. I mean, it's a long shot, and it is a moonshot. The way that Trump has put all his chips on, we have to show strength. We want to get back. We're a better country than this. Let's stop being afraid. So the American people aren't there yet. If in the next 3 weeks they can get there to where he is, then that's a game changer.
Well, you got 2 debates, and hopefully he does better, and hopefully, the moderator's not totally in the tank like Chris Wallace was, and hopefully Biden, loses his way. I mean, a lot could happen in those 2 debates, and I think you're going to be taking some troops home in the next 4 weeks. Hopefully that's a factor, and just, hopefully the economy continues to bounce back, and there's only so much that the machine, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN can lie. There's only so much that they can do to help this feeble Democrat, Joe Biden. We'll see. And tonight, will be interesting. A couple things before we go. We criticize Howard Stern as much as anyone. We've been doing it since he hired this Marcy Turk, this woman that doesn't allow anyone on the staff to talk to Howard, and he decided to totally sell out, become one of the beautiful people, and spend his weekends with Rosie O'Donnell and tell Ellen how much he loves her dancing. And he had Hillary Clinton in studio for like 2 hours and never asked her a single tough question, did nothing but kiss her ample ass. And I would criticize him every time. And I guess we all have our price. He is a total sellout. But at some point, selling out is worth it. And we now hear that Stern's about to sign a deal with Sirius to stay at Sirius for $120 million a year. A year. All I could say is, if you flash that kind of dough in front of me, I would suck Ellen's toes too.
Well, I guess it depends how much he clears out of that, right? I mean, Baba Booey must be making $1 million, $2 million out of that.
Even Howard, who's not known as very good to his people, as we've heard from Artie and Stuttering John, even Howard will share the wealth to some extent. And you know what? All he's got to do is show up every day, bash Trump, kiss Biden's ass, and cash massive checks. We all have our price. And I guess I commend him. My hat's off to.
Well, they had he was somewhere between $80 and $100 million a year in his last deal, and Sirius cleared $1 billion in profit last year. So
incredible.
It's still worth, as crazy as it is, it's worth every penny to that company. Every penny.
And is that all subscriptions? Do they have ads on Sirius?
They do have ads.
Yeah.
He had Steven Singer, and he has certain ads. I mean, there's some ads he can take and others he can't, but he'll just continue what he's doing, just continue to, suck ass on all the usual suspects, and, all the, to have whatever Andrea Mitchell on, or have, probably of Anderson Cooper. And I mean, just he's one of them now. He's not the guy we fell in love with 20, 30, 20 years ago. But hey, if you're going to sell out,
if he's a tentpole for satellite radio, then I think that's overall a healthy thing. To have live radio exist somewhere, albeit however short term, is probably a good thing, and it probably will benefit.
But even just think about, like, he's their most marketable asset, which is kind of crazy because I know like Bruce and who else, like Dave Matthews Band has a channel. They're not like hosting talk shows like he does, but like
it's good. They do have good politics. They do have the Patriot channel and the POTUS channel, and they do have a lot of politics on there for now, which is very hot for now. But I think Stern, even though, what the deal he made, and I'm not talking about the money deal, the deal he made with the devil allows him to get big name interviews. I mean, last week was Chris Rock and Machine Gun Kelly, and these people know that he won't ask any tough questions. If you're a politician, you go on with him. I mean, if Kamala Harris went on today, he wouldn't ask about the bail fund or about her attacks on Biden. He would kiss her ass and say how wonderful she is. They know that. He's a soft landing spot. For them, it's like, going on with, Colbert. They're not going to get tough questions. They're going to get the usual, the love they want. So they know it's not the guy that was so great 20 years ago. But again, it works. It works. It's very, very profitable. He's never going to fly commercial again.
I can't decide if I like him for his loyalty to Sirius in the sense that,
loyalty. They're giving him $120 million a year. That's not loyalty.
Easily, if they're going to pay him $120 million a year, clearly they're making a shitload off of him. So he could easily go and launch his own, even just a podcast. Then the same, especially, what does he do? 3 days a week? He does 3 days a week. Can you imagine three episodes a week of Howard Stern on podcast? He would become bigger than Rogan overnight.
He's got the greatest job ever. He doesn't even do early anymore. I think he comes in at like 7. And he just shoots the shit with Robin for a while. Then he kisses some celebrity's ass, and then he goes home. And he's got a big mansion in Palm Beach, near all the other beautiful people, and probably has a jet and goes back and forth from Manhattan to Palm Beach. It's a great life. It has worked for him.
Well, Dave brings up Rogan. Isn't it interesting that Rogan's got to deal with this insurgency at Spotify, which he just pushed back on, by the way. He essentially called them woke babies. But Stern is so safe now that even with his past, there's no insurgency, against him.
Now that I think about it, I kind of like Ellen. I like her dancing. I think she's wonderful dancing. Can you get Hillary on? Because I want to talk about all these these unfair attacks on my girl Hillary. And I really think Kamala she's everything. She's everything.
Have you seen her shoes, Jerry?
I love the shoes are everything. When she wears the Chuck Taylors, I get a little tingle up my leg.
As part of the patriarchy, the shoes are kind of in my face, and I'm forced to listen to her, which I appreciate.
And I am, now that the Globe has convinced me, I'm all in on Team Biden. I do think, I like to spend a lot of time at the beach. And if we don't elect Biden, the beach is going to just going to get washed away. We need to elect Biden and save the earth. So I'm in.
Well, I'm more impressed too with Dr. Jill Biden as well.
Oh, I know she.
In this pandemic, we need a Dr. Jill around, and to me, she's symbolically all of our doctors.
Yes, I know. And there's nothing like a doctor of elementary education. Dr. Jill. Mark my words. In the end, she's going to be a villain because eventually people are going to go, Joe Biden is not all there. Someone has to pull him off stage and put him, make him comfortable. And that was her job. She is a terrible wife, a terrible person for putting her husband out there for all the world to see as he declines.
You're right, Jerry. You look at that the last debate, and Trump got so many shots in, so many jabs in on Biden that if somebody said it like this, and I think it's right, that Trump just didn't let him fall because he wrapped him up like a boxer would. Instead of just letting Biden fall, Trump wouldn't give him the space to fall because he was trying to maul him too much. I think in the next debate, although it's a town hall, which means that all of the undecided voters will yell at Trump about stuff.
All the undecided voters. They're like and the moderator's a former intern for Joe Biden and a former PR guy for Ted Kennedy. So he'll be perfectly impartial How the hell does that happen? Anyway, we got to go. Your thoughts, Tom Shattuck, on the late, great Eddie Van Halen.
He was what an American treasure. Oh, incredible story. Family came in from Germany, I think. As a kid, he learned to be a pianist and drummer, and then switched as a teenager to guitar. He invented real heavy metal. He was a brilliant guy, as great a composer as anybody else, and probably the coolest guy for about 4 straight decades.
See, I would agree. See, I don't know what makes a great guitarist. I see the lists. Rolling Stone will come out and hear people say, Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix or Eddie Van. I mean, I know what I like. I don't. I like Springsteen. Is he not a great guitarist or
no?
Stevie Van Zandt. Well, why not? Why not? I like the way it sounds. Why Kenny Chesney? Is he not a great guitarist? I don't know. But I will say this. Eddie Van Halen was different, and he was unique in that you would hear a song and say he stood out. You'd say, like Running with the Devil. You'd say that's a great guitar riff, and I don't know what makes it great. I don't know why other guys can't do it. I'm not that musically, inclined, but here's what I'll remember about him. He always looked like he was having a good time.
Yes.
There was an era where lots of heavy metal guys were dour, and I mean, you'd never see Led Zeppelin or Jimmy Page laughing, he'd be serious because he's a serious heavy metal guitarist. But Eddie Van Halen was always laughing and smiling. And even now, the pictures that everyone's tweeting out, Sammy Hagar has a picture and David Lee Roth has a photo together, and they're always laughing and smiling. Unfortunately, often has a cigarette and a drink because he had lung cancer and he died of throat cancer. So I don't think living the rock and roll life was very healthy for him, but he always looked like he was having a good time.
Yeah.
I read a blog this morning. It's from a book where he was having what do they call it? A jam session with Limp Bizkit of all people in LA, and they were smoking weed, and he hates weed. So he storms out of the jam session, gets out of there, and he leaves all his gear behind. And the lead singer of Limp Bizkit, Fred Durst, wouldn't answer his phone call, so he couldn't get his gear back. So he showed up to Fred Durst's house. He pulled up on the lawn in an assault vehicle that he got at a military auction. And he knocks on the door, points a gun at Fred Durst, and says, "Give me my gear right now."
Now I really like him.
Just a badass, just top to bottom a badass.
And there's all kinds of songs. I know all the classic rock stations are playing them all, but now you listen a little differently. You listen for him and not David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar. In fact, I think Sammy Hagar wasn't as good as David Lee Roth, as a lead guy, as a singer, but I do think they had a better time, he just
yes,
that kind of guy. They had more fun. They didn't have a high maintenance, lead guy. And it was probably cool with Eddie. He said, we're gonna just have fun with Sammy Hagar, whether we make rock history or not. We're gonna have a good time.
Right. Well, and also I think Eddie respected Sammy because Sammy was a good guitarist, and Eddie could practice on the keys and keyboards, and Sammy could play guitar. Sammy also, Jerry, you'll be happy about this, a diehard Trump supporter.
That's true. And there's not many of them, but especially today, you're not allowed to come out of the closet. I heard, unless you're John Voight or James Woods, who, by the way, James Woods has been blackballed. He can't get a part, and John Voight's 82 and is not really looking for a lot of parts. I got to say this before we go. Very disappointed. Ben Shapiro did an hour and a half with John Voight. Mm-hmm. Never asked about Mickey Donovan. Not one question about Ray Donovan. Not one. And I'm sitting there going, man, lots of people are new to the party here. Young people, they don't know about Midnight Cowboy. What about Mickey Donovan, one of the great characters in cable TV or it was.
I'm not falling for it, Jerry. You told me 15 years ago I needed to watch 24, and that was an overall disappointment. So I'm not falling for it.
24 was disappointing to you?
Fantastic.
Oh, it was a great show for a while. So did you try Ray Donovan?
No. My wife got rid of Netflix. That's where it would be, right?
It's not.
No, it was on Showtime, so it'd be on Showtime.
Showtime. Yeah. Oh, it's a great show, and it was just canceled. They don't even get a finale. We'll never get to see Mickey Donovan again. It's kind of sad, but if we can get John Voight on this podcast, I promise I will ask about Mickey Donovan, because he was great in that role, and he's old, and he's out there, drinking and doing drugs and fighting and everything, and it worked. It wasn't a stretch. It was one of the great characters in TV, and Ben Shapiro never asked about it. It was really disappointing. But anyway, we wouldn't do that. Tonight, big debate. Pence, we both picking Pence in a TKO.
Correct. He will wrap her up in one question that essentially there'll be awkward silence after her laughing, and the moderator will try to extract more of an answer from her. She won't do it. She'll laugh more, and it'll be uncomfortable for everybody, and that'll be the moment.
I'm looking forward to. We'll have the full recap on that tomorrow, and I'll have all the latest New England Patriots to test positive for the coronavirus. How many have to test positive before they cancel the game? Or
I don't know. I just saw a tweet out of Denver that the game is gonna happen, but this is, I don't know. I mean, obviously they have to assess the situation, but
I mean, they're
confident.
prepared for I don't know, whatever it is, a half a dozen. They have all kinds of protocols in place. But if it goes all through the locker room and there's 10, 12, 15 guys, then I assume you have to postpone it. And I assume if you're the Patriots, you do everything you can. Hell, you get someone like the Scrubs and you say, here, go over there and let Stephon breathe on you. We need to get the numbers up so we can get this game postponed. Until Cam Newton is right, you want to wait. You don't want to play at all if you can help it.
I was thinking a couple of years they'll all play with the coronavirus, like the Pats did in 2007 versus Indian when they all had the pneumonia and they're all sucking wind.
Don't compare it to pneumonia. CNN.
Oh, that's right.
If you compare it to pneumonia, Twitter will take down your YouTube will take down the post. You can't do that. Compare it to the flu. They'll put a warning up there saying this is disinformation. Anyway, we'll talk about that another day. That's Tom Shattuck. He's the host of the Burn Barrel podcast. He's our political analyst. He's predicting Mike Pence by TKO. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Plus, tomorrow we're going to have Ellen on, and I'm going to tell her how wonderful she is. We're going to have Hillary on. I'm going to tell her how wonderful she is. I'm angling for that Sirius XM gig. I wouldn't demand 120 million a year. I'd settle.
No, we just need 1% of that. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, 1% of that would be good, but I would absolutely sell out. We all have our price, and I believe Howard Stern got his price. Congratulations to Howie Hamptons, and thanks to DCU and to Shea Concrete and to Allied Paving. Thanks that you can follow all of us on Twitter. Tom Shattuck, what's your Twitter account?
At Tom Shattuck.
At Tom Shattuck, at Dave Cullen, at Jerry Calling. We're all there. I think I'll be tweeting. I don't know about you guys. I'll be tweeting about the debate tonight. I'll be tweeting about all the closings and all the restaurants, all the small businesses that get destroyed by this lockdown. It's getting crazy out there. I'll be eating breakfast with my mask on because that's important. Every other bite. Don't forget. Between bites, put your mask on. This is the Callahan Podcast. I'm Jerry Callahan. We will talk to you again tomorrow.